This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Welcome to Spotcast Season 6, Episode 50. My name is Tim. I am in Toronto, Ontario. I'm joined once again by Jonathan Kuline in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello there, kids.
And we have Jaime Lopez Jr. in Mississauga, Seattle. Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
So this is episode 199 of the official, ever since we started this thing. So we're one episode away from the... This, I guess, is this is the penultimate 200th episode?
Yes, penultimate episode. The last but one supper.
The last but one. Yes. Of the 200, of the was it 2 centuries? Yeah, I guess 2 centuries, whatever.
Our bicentennial.
Whatever. Huh?
Our bicentennial.
Yeah. So let's start off with some fact check. I was talking about The Dirty Dozen, which is the movie that I remember Donald Sutherland from, which also had Telly Savalas in it, right? You were talking about Kelly's Heroes last week, and I don't know that I've actually ever seen Kelly's Heroes, but I've seen The Dirty Dozen a number of times. I saw one where it's all guys who are like wherever they send the army guys when they go to jail.
Yep.
Yeah. And then they all pull them out, and there are there's Charles Bronson and this giant guy, and Lee Marvin is the off the hook general, and Ernest Borgnine plays a general in it, and pretty big names for but that's, I guess, the way they did those movies back in the 60s, right? So, but it was not, I think it was one of his first roles in a Hollywood movie, right? Because he did Kelly's Heroes after that, and of course it's one of his roles that he's known for, being off the hook in Kelly's Heroes, but I don't know that I've ever seen that one. I wasn't a big movie fan when I was growing up, other than things like The Great Escape, so yep.
Cool.
That's 4-1 out for Donald Sutherland.
Yes, indeed.
Alrighty. Yeah, so we'll go to the headlines, and Jonathan's up first.
Yeah, I thought I'd get us started with a couple of fun trailers we got this week. We got our first look at Batman Caped Crusader, which is coming to Amazon Prime this summer. And this is a show that is being led by Bruce Timm, who is an artist and creator who his art style was the first in the sort of revival of Batman era, Batman in the animated series, and then Batman and Robin adventures. And his sort of visual style really kind of transformed the look of Batman in the 1990s and carried that through for a long stretch of the Batman animated series. This feels very much like a throwback to me. It feels very like an homage almost to that era of Batman cartoons, and I must admit it's the first time in a while that I've thought, like, this is definitely something I'm going to watch. What do you guys think?
It actually looks pretty good. I haven't watched a whole lot of animated Batman stuff, to be honest with you, but other than I guess I never have. But the odd ones, because I know you've seen a lot of the Batman animated movies and stuff like that in the theaters and stuff, right? So it looks pretty slick compared to what I'm used to seeing on, like, I think YTV shows them a lot up here.
Yeah, they do, like, the Batman series, and there's a few that they've done in the interim that are good, but this one, it looks really slick.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Jaime?
Yeah, it does look pretty interesting. It does kind of have that Batman the Animated Series, but with a little bit of a mix of the original art style from the comics. The sort of, I don't know, something about the pointiness of the ears and the way that the cowl sits on Batman's head. Of like, oh, it definitely looks like he's probably gonna shoot a criminal, because he used to do that really early on in the canon. Yeah,
I think like I say, this one it's funny because I am a huge fan of that era. I watched those shows, throughout my late teens and early 20s, and really love them. I have a lot of them on digital or DVD or Blu-ray. This one, it looks like they've just sort of upscaled everything. Like, everything just looks like cleaner and crisper and just a little, I mean, obviously it's probably done all on computer versus doing it in the old those old episodes, they actually were still doing cells. So yeah, it just looks that much more polished. But boy, I like it. So I'm in on that one. The other trailer that that I flagged for us is the trailer for Red 1, which is one of the most bonkers things I've seen in a while. It's a new Dwayne Johnson project, and from what I gathered from this trailer, it seems like the idea is that Santa Claus, who is played by a very swole, very swole-looking Santa Claus adaptation here, it just looks like the most bonkers interpretation of sort of the mythology of holidays ever put together, and also kind of weirdly violent, but also tongue-in-cheek. I think it looked nuts. What about you guys?
Yeah, it looks pretty funny, but it's like from the producers of Jumanji, and of course it's got The Rock in it, which you didn't mention, but I don't think you mentioned. But so it looks pretty funny. There's a bunch of these movies out there with Chris Evans, sort of as I guess the comic relief kind of guy, right? So it's got some of that, not quite as dark as The Boys humor, but that sort of sarcastic, humor kind of stuff, like when they have a slapping contest with Krampus. And looks pretty interesting.
Yeah, this could maybe be a good pairing with David Harbour's Violent Night. He played Santa Claus. Just make a double feature movie night for Christmas. And with the polar bear that's like hella swole, here's an opportunity for the brand and marketing team at Coca-Cola. You need to bring back the polar bears. And it needs to be this one in there. It's a way to tie things together. Little crossover.
Yeah, and
I thought it was Carlton the Bear at first when I first saw him.
Jaime, I thought you might tweak to this, but the fight they show in the trailer with the giant snowman reminded me of, is it called Clay Fighter? It was an old video game, Clay Fighter, that had the snowman who was evil-looking snowman who would kick butt.
Yeah, it was a clay animated, like a Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat kind of game, right? It's competitive fighting with various claymation characters, and I can't remember if he was on the cover or if I'm thinking of like a video game magazine, like Electronic Gaming Monthly or Game Pro or something, of like the snowman character you're talking about.
What's the? Oh no, he's on the cover for the Super Nintendo edition.
Okay, there we go.
Angry looking snowman. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's immediately where my mind went. Was this that I remember getting my butt kicked by my friends playing that game, and this claymation snowman beating the tar out of me. But yeah, I don't know that this is necessarily something I'll see in the theater, but I suspect at some point I will watch this movie because it just looks dumb and funny.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's a theater movie for me either. So. Yeah. But yeah, or a flight, like a long distance flight or something like that.
Yeah,
it belongs on a 9-inch screen.
What you got for us?
Cool. And yeah, so I've got just a little clip I found. I was trolling around on Twitter, the X thing, whatever it's called. I see these things every now and then. It's sort of like how the camera kind of moves through. They do a split screen with the actual movie and like a green screen to show how they shot it. So I've always wondered, this is from John Wick, and it's the scene where he's whipping down the road on the bike and the guys are shooting at him and he's fighting them off on the bikes. And so they're all sitting on bikes on these green screens and they're being pushed around and there's people, cameras and stuff like that to move. The cameraman moves around them to sort of do that sort of flyover kind of shot that they do when you have these kind of high chase. Like they do them in The Dark Knight. They've done them as well, right? Like those scenes where the bat cycle or whatever it's called is whipping down the road kind of thing. They probably do it things like, I know shows like Tenet and what are the Matrix. Those ones actually did physical cars and stuff like that, but kind of shows an interesting way to show how high speed, motorcycle battle is done. When it looks like it's in the movie, it looks like they're actually riding the bikes, and in here you'll see that they're actually not. They're on these little coaster bikes with little 4 wheels underneath them, right? So casters, I guess, is what it's called. Interesting shot. I recommend people take a look at that, and I'll throw over to Jaime for the next one.
Yeah. In this era of streaming services, everybody is realizing content is expensive. They're cutting content. They're licensing it elsewhere. And, the other lever or button that they can use is price hikes. So now you Canadians get to join in, presumably. This is talking about an American audience here for Paramount Plus, but since you all have it, I'm going to assume it's inevitable for you all. So the various Paramount Plus tiers, and I think this article from The Verge might have a typo because it doesn't make sense. The 2 tiers would be exactly the same price. I'd have to double check. But it'll either be $1 more or perhaps up to $2 more, depending on which tier you have.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just watching, when I watched The Boys today, I got halted by a couple of commercials, in the middle of the show. They're not so much that you're annoyed by them, but it is kind of annoying that all of a sudden all these things are showing up as people realize, or companies realize, that what they offered is not what they can actually maintain to offer,
Yeah, I mean, they do that across a bunch of the different platforms now, where it's basically, we're going to start showing you ads unless you click the option to pay us a couple bucks more and get the not ads. I got a note from my cable provider just, I think, yesterday or today, saying that Disney Plus is now free as part of my package. And I thought, oh, that's nice. And then I looked at the fine print and it was, it's the base model Disney Plus with commercials is free.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I get that offer all the time too, like, 3 months of it or whatever.
No, this is, I guess, an ongoing thing now. Like, they were doing that too. They were doing like,
who's your provider? Are you with Rogers?
Yeah,
or
Rogers.
The other one.
Yeah, I got an email.
Really? Yeah. Huh. It's funny. I got to check that because I pay Rogers way too much money. I don't watch as much cable TV as we used to, and I would really like to cut that cable. But
yeah, the day that they make an affordable sports package, I'm probably out. But unfortunately, that's where they get me. This time of year, I feel like I could drop it entirely because I don't watch a heck of a lot of summertime sports, although I am watching the European football championship right now. So
yeah, I don't watch sports at all, so I don't even know why. I mean, I have it for all the sci-fi and entertainment stuff that we watch, but and arts and crafts stuff, right? Yeah. Here's what it is. Well, I mean, Carol spends most of her time watching YouTube these days anyway, so
there you go.
Yep,
it's all coming for cable.
Yeah, I mean, there's a British painting show that she watches. It's like I forget what it's called, but they paint portraits of people, and she watches that one I record that one for her on one of the machines upstairs. So, Yep, would like to see it go, but I didn't get that email from Roger saying I have free.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
wonder what package you got. I have the VIP one or whatever it's called. Right?
There we go. Well, it's because I'm at Ignite.
Oh, you're at Ignite. Yeah, I'm not going to go there.
As an eligible Rogers customer, Disney Plus standard with ads is now included as part of your TV package, giving you more content, no additional cost.
Interesting. Yeah, because I noticed there was a few providers out there offering these packages. Like, I mean, like I want Amazon Prime not for the TV show, but for the free shipping, because I constantly buy stuff from Amazon, right? That's why I do it. The TV was a kind of a bonus thing, but now with the commercials, it's slightly irritating, but not irritating enough to really even care about it, other than mention it on the podcast once in a while.
Yeah.
Over to Jaime, I guess, for the next story.
Yeah, speaking of cutting costs, the fine people of the resurrected Toys R Us brand have used OpenAI's Sora, the ChatGPT, but for video creation, to create this film teaser. And if you go to toysrus.com, there's the full, They say teaser. It's like the teaser's 30 seconds. The full thing is like a minute. So I'm not sure what that's all about. But you watch this, and I see the concept here of here's this children's imagination kind of thing, and you enjoy the journey to have adventures and stuff with, of course, toys that are sold at Toys R Us. But it's so kind of eerie because you can see how the characters don't look quite right. They look like the partially mangled sort of things, like the little giraffe toy is like, who would ever make this? What is with this line that's just hanging in the middle of the air kind of thing? It's got that sort of, I don't know, swooshy sort of edge to everything. Nothing is really crisp and clean. It's like, the AI is trying to blend these things together and isn't doing it quite right. It's really sort of a bizarre thing, but I'm assuming it was dirt cheap to put together.
That's kind of the scary part of AI, is that doesn't necessarily come with a price tag that would prohibit bad decisions.
Mm-hmm. Well, a small piece like that would be hundreds of thousands of dollars to produce, right? If done properly through a proper, video agency kind of thing, right? So if somebody can get that done for like a couple of $100, it's a hard case to make, right? Yeah, it got us 85% of the way there, they said.
Yuck.
Yeah. It's because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it.
And speaking of AI, Jaime?
Yeah, and speaking of things that maybe you can do but shouldn't, ? We'll find out. The nice people at NBC, owners of Peacock, they've got an AI version of Al Michaels that's going to give you Olympic recaps. It's going to say your voice. It's going to try its best to not hallucinate. It's like, wait a minute. So did Canada win that gold medal, or was it really Zimbabwe? Like that sort of thing. Like it's gonna be fun, I'm sure. But it sounds pretty decent.
I feel really icky about this one. I'm sure, obviously, Al must have signed off on it, but I still feel really...
Is he still around?
Yeah, Al's still with us.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And maybe this is a pragmatic way to say that we can all continue generation after generation. We can all continue to believe in miracles for decades and perhaps millennia to come.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is on that same icky slope towards, they'll just write all the news stories for us. What could go wrong if you let a computer write your news? Like,
yeah,
I don't like it.
Yeah. And the last thing I've got here is a Star Trek related thing. Again, I was actually on Vision Pro, which is a funny story because we keep our notes in Google Doc, and Google Docs have not made an app for Vision Pro yet. So I'm suffering through trying to use it in Safari, and I couldn't paste the link in to the Vision Pro no matter what I did, because Google has their own sort of way of taking over copy and paste when you're in Google Docs. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but anyway, so I managed to get this link in here for the show notes just before the show, the old-fashioned way. And it's an interesting thread. It's a thread from this guy named Craig Baird who does Canadian history, and it's all about how Star Trek's relationship to Canada. So, for example, Star Trek, the original series, originally appeared on September 6, 1966 in Canada, 2 days on CTV, 2 days before it showed up on NBC in the US, which I thought was interesting. And apparently Jean-Luc Picard at some point mentions that he's related to Jacques Cartier, one of the people who did the original exploration of the St. Lawrence Seaway, I believe. And quadricriticale, which is the grain that the genetically engineered hybrid of wheat and rye that was used in the Trouble with Tribbles episode, was apparently based on something called triticale, which is an actual thing developed in Canada in the 20th century. I don't know if that's a real story, real history, or that Star Trek history, but and then of course they have a picture of the Lake Ontario Bridge, which we famously saw in
Strange New Worlds, yeah.
Strange New Worlds, yeah. So, which, if there was a bridge from here to Rochester, we'd be on it every day going to buy stuff. I had to drive down to Rochester to get my Vision Pro, right?
You could drive all the way around the lake.
Yeah, and so we talked about this on the show when it happened, but Khan Noonien Singh apparently as a child was raised in Toronto in 2022, according to Strange New Worlds, I guess it was. What show was that? Was it Strange New Worlds?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then according to Star Trek lore, in 2024, Canada took part in the Europa mission, where astronauts went to the Jovian moon of Europa. Of course, I guess it's happening later this year sometime, I guess, right? And then 2032, Canada took part in the Ares 4 mission, which was early to send people to Mars. So it's interesting they went to Jupiter's moon before they went to Mars, but it's Star Trek. And in 2365, there's a scene where, I guess it's in the next generation, where there's some sort of Iconian gateway, and as it's flashing through the sort of futuristic buildings that in the montage, at one point it uses Toronto City Hall as a and it's kind of in the mix of images that they show, which is interesting because I think it was also used in a couple of those. What was that virus movie with the girl from Fifth Element?
Resident Evil.
Yeah, Resident Evil. I think there's a scene with her running down the side of the building, and couple more. 2373. Michael Edgerton tells Captain Sisko that his family was from Canada. Ooh. One of their famous family heirlooms is their lucky loonie. And in 2368, Josh, Albert, and Wesley Crusher took a break from Starfleet Academy to go skiing in Calgary, which they probably meant going to Banff because that's where people go skiing in
the skiing in Calgary
Alberta.
is pretty terrible. It's the skiing in Banff that's awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah, and that's basically the 9 items in this thread. So I thought it was interesting. I'll have a link in the show notes for that too, as well. OC.
Very cool.
In Quebec. Yeah.
Just in time for Canada Day. Woohoo!
Yeah, so we're sort of okay. So we're going to talk about the main stuff we're going to talk about this week. Of course, we were focusing this time around on Star Wars: The Acolyte. And last week's episode was called Night, so of course this one's called Day.
No, the other way around. It's day then night.
Oh, well, last week was a day. Oh, this is night.
This is night.
Isn't that what I just said?
No.
Oh, okay, whatever. Season 1, Episode 5. Take it away.
Well, this was... Oh, go ahead, Amy.
No, that was Tim.
That was me. Go ahead.
Oh, you want me to go? Oh, sorry. Because I heard Tim. I thought you were going to go in with yours, Tim. So the recap here is the Jedi battle the Stranger. And yes, this is a short episode because we spent all the monies very quickly.
Yeah.
Oh, was it timing-wise? Was it a short episode too?
It was 34 minutes.
Wow.
Including credits.
Wow.
But
yeah,
man,
I saw the time. I saw the time. I was like, when you go in and you're going to watch the episode, I'm like, I wonder if anything's really going to happen here because that doesn't seem like a lot of time. And they were very efficient with time on this one.
Yeah. My elevator pitch for this one is sometimes what's behind a mask is right in front of your face. But I think the winner that I had seen so far on the net was the headline on Gizmodo I saw today, which is "The Sith Really Hit the Fan."
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
a good episode.
Was like a nuts episode. I mean, we knew that it was going to be a showdown episode. They teased us and they left us on a cliffhanger last week. We knew this was going to be a combat, sword fight episode, but I don't think any of us were prepared for this.
Yeah, the death and destruction. Yeah.
I mean, this Stranger character, the Darth Venom, as I've seen him called online, lots of different, speculative names, but StarWars.com has been calling him the Stranger with a capital S, showing up and just slicing through Jedi like hot butter. And it's funny because, I think we joked last we were calling them Jedi red shirts, right? If the Jedis don't get introduced, we'll be like, oh, yeah, well, clearly that's, going to be Jedi death fodder. But the fact that they kind of tease you a little bit with, the sort of unnamed, attended Jedi all get sort of snuffed out in a row, but we're left with sort of our core of heroes. We've got Sol, we've got Yord, and we've got Jecki still alive, and then of course May and Osha. And so you're watching this thinking like, okay, well, that's what happens in these shows. They kill off the no-name people, but the heroes that they've established go. And then they twist it on you towards the end of the episode when, in quick succession, the Stranger brutally snaps the neck of Yord and then makes a pincushion out of Jecki. It really kind of throws you back a little bit. And then, of course, he's taunting through this whole thing saying, basically, you see my face, you die, I mean, this was maybe one of the darkest things we've seen in Star Wars canon ever. Yeah,
it was there was a lot of disappointing. I mean, because Jecki did hold her own. She had a couple of battles with him. In fact, at one point she even had 2 lightsabers, right? Going.
Yeah, she Kalnakas as well.
Yeah, because she took that off of May, I think.
Yep.
And but he ends up doing the what's her name from Maisie from Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, yeah, from Arya. Yeah, well, and that
he does the Arya move at the end there.
It kind of reminded me of Ahsoka. Like, you know, again, young Jedi and double lightsaber. When that came out, that was where my mind went. She was using a different form of sword combat, but that I think was, I had that as my best pew pew pew, was the fight when Jackie had the two lightsabers and was going toe to toe with the stranger. That was the highlight of the episode for me as far as the combat part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had the
there was a lot of.
I had a double kill and the double blades, kind of twice. So the double kill with the double beheading was pretty cool.
Oh yeah,
kind of something new. The double blades of Jackie, but also the like short dagger blade that the stranger had, right? So his main saber is engaged, and then he punches holes with the other one.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Out of the hilt, right?
Yeah.
He drops it basically this like hidden mini saber inside the hilt. That was
that's what I was talking about, the sort of the Arya move, right?
Yep. No, and that was again, it was a stunning moment because Jackie's holding her own, and all of a sudden he pulls this little trick, and you just, it's that shot from behind, right? You see her back, and you just see the saber going in and in and in, and you're just like, whoa, that is grim. Yeah. Good. I mean, yeah, really cool episode. Lots of stuff to unpack, but yeah, it was funny because, you know, obviously the last episode was very much sort of table setting. As you say, Tim, it was day before the night. This one, it was almost unrelenting. Like it was like, what, you know, like it didn't make sense. I don't think we were going to see the twins get killed yet. That doesn't make sense. I didn't think we were going to see Soul get killed, but you know, when I saw Yord get his neck snapped, I was like, oh, this could get really grim, you know, like this.
Yeah, we're running out of Jedi for sure.
Yeah. Like, and you know, the moves that the stranger was using, you know, the saber throw that he chops through all the trees and just misses them. As you said, Jaime, the one where he like uses the force to pull somebody onto he's lanced somebody and then uses the saber to pull somebody straight through that. This was like, as I say, really, really dark energy for a Star Wars project.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. You kind of wonder, like, so who trained him, or he figured all this stuff out on his own? He said, right? Like,
well, I have some ideas we can talk about.
Do you? Oh, okay.
Do you want to do some Easter eggs first? I got a couple.
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
So I saw a bunch of people online trying to figure out like why were the lightsabers not working? Why, like, what was the issue with why their lightsabers kept sparking out? And
he kept hitting them or something, right? To make that happen.
It's because he had a sleeve on and his helmet on, and his sleeve and his helmet contained a metal called cortosis that's been established in canon. And cortosis basically disrupts a saber. That's why when Yord attacks him to get into the fight, when he comes back with Osha, he picks up the helmet and he takes it and uses it as a shield. That's why it disrupts the stranger's lightsaber, because that has cortosis in it as well. So it's not the same as what's the Mandalorian
Bethnel or
Beskar?
Beskar, yeah.
Beskar. It's not the same as Beskar, but it actually contains a bit of a radioactivity to it that actually interferes, or an electromagnetivity that interferes with the sabers. That's why everybody's sabers keep sparking out, and that's sort of his cheating in battle, right? So that, for the people who were wondering why, like what was going on there, they didn't make it crystal clear in the episode, but StarWars.com later after the episode, I guess it's Thursday or Friday, they put out a little like character bio of the stranger and mentioned that cortosis is the reason. And cortosis is something that's been talked about in the expanded universe stuff that they put out, comics and books and stuff like that before. The other one we saw that it was a good Easter egg was force healing, right? So obviously there were people who were a little prickly in the series of the latest Star Wars trilogy, the Skywalker trilogy, that, you know, suddenly there's this magical force healing that, you know, never happened before. But, you know, now we see that is something that people who are strong in the force could do all along. So it's nice to have that tie-in, that it's not just a one and done. It wasn't just some random thing that some people can just do this, right? Did you guys spot any other Easter eggs?
No, but I'm surprised that when May went back into Kalnakis' hut, she didn't grab his
The bowcaster.
what was that bow thing called?
Yeah, bowcaster. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that's what she was looking for, but she was looking for his lightsaber.
Well, and it's weird too because it almost felt like she was taking the saber in the spirit of what like because she was supposed to kill somebody and take the saber. I almost felt like that a little bit. I wasn't really quite sure how to read that, but it seemed like it was basically like, this guy's going to kill me. I need a lightsaber.
Yeah, well, I'm surprised she didn't have one to begin with, right?
Yeah.
So, or how she lost it.
Well, she didn't because she had to steal one, right? I think we talked about that last week.
Did she never have a lightsaber in the first couple of battles?
No, she always used those throwing knives, right? Remember, she kills in the first episode. She uses her throwing knives, but the idea that they said in the last week's episode is that she has to take it from a Jedi in combat. And then she can use it because killing an unarmed person is against the Jedi code. So you basically are converting over to the dark side if you kill somebody who's unarmed by taking their weapon. And then the Sith, theoretically, from there would corrupt the crystal inside to make it a red crystal.
I mean, I suppose we could go through Kalnaka's hut and find Easter eggs galore, but...
Yeah. The best quotes, they said what? I pulled a few things. Some of them, I think, are obvious. Some of them are interesting and sort of telling. I sense something familiar is something Soul says when they're fighting the stranger.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's because they've met him when he was pretending to be Chimere, but it also kind of felt like there was a little more to it. Later on in the episode, when Yord attacks him, Yord says you, and I think that's that moment of recognition because they did meet him 2 episodes ago. So I don't think it's any deeper than that, but I kind of was like, oh, is there a different level of recognition, or is it just that? Yord early in the episode is sort of shaking off this fog and says he gets inside your head and stays there. I thought that was a really interesting way to describe the power of the dark side, right? The stranger, when he's revealed to have been disguising himself as Chimere, you really didn't know it was me, not even deep down, which that felt like he was talking directly to the fans, right?
Yeah.
This is an interesting one. I have no name, but the Jedi like you might call me Sith. I'm going to circle back to that one because that one definitely caught my attention. The stranger, I have accepted my darkness. What have you done with yours? Talking to Soul. Again, alluding to that something bad that happened 16 years ago. I'm curious to see what his role in all this was. May,
because he does say, "I will explain" when she cross-examines him about that.
Yeah, absolutely. May saying to Osha, "Don't choose them again. Choose me. Choose us." And then, of course, Osha says no and tries to slap the handcuffs on her. And the stranger, what extraordinary beings we are. Even in the revelation of our triumph, you see the depths of our despair. Ooh, just deliciously dark thing to say after turning a bunch of Jedi Knights into shish kebabs. Any other standouts for you guys?
No, I think you got most of them.
Yeah, my 2 were between Saul and the stranger. Saul saying she was a child, and the bad guy saying you brought her here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, that's on you, dude, for carrying around with children with knives and guns.
Yeah.
And the other one was Saul and the stranger saying, Saul saying, why would you risk discovery? It's like, I did wear a mask.
Yeah. Yeah, the other one that I didn't add in was when he kills Jecki and Soul says, Jecki, and he says, oh, was that its name? Like, oof.
Oof. Ouch.
Oof. Yeah, again, just a deliciously dark character. And Manny Jacinto, we should shout out as playing the stranger. At first, obviously playing Chimere as sort of this bumbling, but clearly, underneath the surface menacing character. And now as this, just looking like the most dripping with venom villain in this was he was so good. Okay. So the stranger says in this episode, this is the big questions. He says in this episode, you saw my face, you have to die. That's basically his, that's why he's basically butchering all these Jedis. Like, you can't see my face and live. That's not gonna do. So the twist at the end of this episode is that we see May chop off her longer hair to resemble Osha. take her clothes, and leave with Saul and Basil, the weird rodent man. And we see when the stranger discovers the one twin lying there, we see the tattoo on the arm. So we know that's Osha, because we've established she has that tattoo on her arm, right? So the question that's been bugging people online, and people are really harping on this one, of course it occurred to me, I'm sure it occurred to both of you. So in The Phantom Menace, when Qui-Gon Jinn takes Anakin back to the Jedi Council and says, I believe I encountered a Sith Lord, and Ki-Adi-Mundi says, their kind haven't been seen for a millennia. This is, 100+ years before the events that happened there.
So not a millennia.
So the question is, do they make it back? Does Saul never get to report back in? Does this mean that Saul dies before they can report back to the council, or that this information never makes it back to that level of the council, that the stranger and his identity and the existence of the Sith at this phase never comes to light? So does that mean that either through death or other means that May, Osha, Saul, and I probably not Basil, I don't know if Basil saw what was going on there, but that they have to die within the next few episodes?
I don't know. Or did the writers not check the facts with you before they wrote the show? It
just seems too obvious, because again, it was front of mind for me. I'm sure it was front of mind. I've seen people commenting online saying, hey, wait a minute. I saw a bunch of blog sites that were like writing articles, even Screen Rant and places like that were writing articles saying, well, this could really change a story that they wrote like 25 years ago. It really kind of messes things up. I'm like, okay, we got 3 more episodes to go, so maybe don't get too freaked out about this yet. I have a tough time believing that somebody as smart as Leslie Headland wouldn't know this and or think this, and that all the layers of Star Wars and Lucasfilm scrutiny that go into this, they wouldn't know that. So I still think that there's more to come on that front, but it is pretty interesting that Ki-Adi-Mundi would do that. Now, the other part of this is we did see when Sol left on this mission that his master basically said, we're not taking this to the Jedi Council, because if we take it to the Jedi Council, they have to take it to the Senate, and then it becomes a whole thing. So maybe this is just a Black Ops off the book kind of thing, and so maybe the greater Jedi group never finds out about the existence of a Sith.
Yeah, that was going to be my take, that this gets the what happened to the USS Discovery kind of approach.
Exactly.
We could cover it up.
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah. Now, there's another possibility. So the stranger he does 2 things. He cheats during his fight by having the armor and the sleeve that have cortosis in it. And he uses a fight maneuver where this is, again, I'm going to get out of my nerd limb here. There's actually a sword fighting technique that the Jedi and the Sith millennia ago agreed was sort of unsportsmanlike or basically like cheating in a sword fight, which is you can't turn your saber off and then turn your saber back on while you're fighting, because in theory you can use it as a basically like a laser weapon, right? You're using it to shoot the blade out instead of actually like using it as a sword. And the stranger does that at one point. He turns it off and turns it back on again. He uses that cheating maneuver. And so so there's 2 parts of this. That, and towards the end of the episode, if you listen to the end to the music cues, they play Kylo Ren's music at the end of this episode.
Oh, really?
And so there's 2 possibilities. They play his music to indicate that the twins are part of a dyad. So maybe they're calling that back. I don't think that's what it is. I think that he says, I'm a Sith, because he's kind of trying to throw the Sith under the bus. I think he's a predecessor to the Knights of Ren, because he fights like a Knight of Ren. I've read.
Yeah, he's got the mask hood.
He's got the mask is way more Knights of Ren than it is Sith, and his fighting style is much dirtier, and his tactics are much dirtier than the Sith. I think, even though if you read like Wikipedia, if you read the stuff online, the Knights of Ren really aren't active in this period that we know of. Now, again, this could be just giving us more backstory to that. But to me, the way that he fights reminded me way more of the Knight of Ren. Dark, dirty, Force users, yes. Sword fighters, yes. But much more like hooligan-y than elegant. And so I just immediately was like, I wonder if there's another shoe to drop. And I wonder if he just says Sith to throw them off the trail. That he's like, yeah, sure, you can call me a Sith, because why would you trust anything that comes out of this guy's mouth at this point?
Right.
Yeah.
What do you guys make of all this?
Well, I mean, the whole idea of that there would be that there are rules of honor in war, right, or in fighting.
Well, it's in combat, right? I mean, the idea is that these are, was it a more elegant weapon for a more elegant time? I don't know.
True, but by the same token, though, I mean, two things. One is you're also mixing, science fiction and physics together, which pick a lane, But the other one is like that, the real victors in battle, in fight, right, are the ones who don't necessarily follow the rules. I mean, there's obviously there's martial arts and there's different fighting techniques and whatever, but at the end of the day, the whole history of mankind is littered with people who didn't follow a particular rule and just were brutal, right? And surprising and use war tactics. I mean, if you look at the war tactics all the way through, the 16, 17, 1800s, it was kind of ridiculous to the point where, like, at the beginning of the, just before the turn of the last 19th century, the soldiers would all line up together and just shoot at each other,
Yeah. This is before guerrilla warfare, right?
Yeah. But I mean, but over the Romans had the thing where they all would hold their shields and they would move as a unit, kind of thing. And there's all these different kind of fighting strategies that people would use. But it's like in hockey, when people do that move where they pick up the puck on the blade of their stick and they do the spin around, wrap around kind of. Yeah, I mean, like, that didn't exist before, and even like in hockey, the whole concept of using a curved blade was considered. Yeah. Back in the 60s was considered like not appropriate, right? Yep. So, and yet, every single blade is curved now, right?
Yeah.
Or like I was listening to a story about the curling broom. These guys invented this broom that is so efficient that with this particular material that you don't need two sweepers, you only need one. Right. And when they introduced that into competition, there was all kinds of uproar about it, right? But it's progress in fighting, progress in sweeping ice,
Yeah. I'm curious. I'm curious to see, like, this larger mystery. I mean, obviously this episode was so action packed. We kind of dropped all the, hey, what's the backstory? What's the big, what's Soul hiding? What became of it? Just, this episode was so propulsive. You kind of forgot all that stuff. But now, obviously, with May going with Soul and now Osha being with the stranger, they're both in a position to learn the story from a different perspective, right? So I think the next episode or episodes will probably carry that over, where, the stranger will theoretically tell his version of what happened to Osha, and May will ask Soul for his perspective. But yeah, I mean, this was a banger. This was a banger of an episode. I mean, we knew when we saw, 8 Jedi Knights ignite their lightsabers and charge towards a red lightsabered masked character that the potential was there, but man, they delivered. This was something else.
Well, even against those bugs, when the solution was to get the bugs to attack him by putting the light on the back of him, and at the end of the episode, you see him drop down, and the bugs are all dead, right? So
yep. And then we also see Basil later on picks up the flashing head from Pip, right, and puts him in his pocket. So yeah.
It's interesting too. I was kind of thinking about that. Like, was that the technology back then that the droids you had were? Oh no, I guess they had droids flying the ship too, right?
Yep.
It was kind of like the personal droid was like something you carried in your pocket on a BlackBerry, as opposed to like a big giant trash can like R2-D2.
I feel like it was a missed opportunity to call it Newton.
Well, yeah, that too, or even like a PDA or a Palm Pilot or whatever. But because I mean. Effectively, Osha's role is the same. I think she said she was a tech something or other, right?
Well, she's a mechneck, which is basically like
it's the same thing as R2-D2.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Because he basically goes out on the outside of the ship and fixes stuff, and she was doing the same thing.
Yep.
When the episode started, where the series started.
Yep. Wow, this was great. I'm looking forward to next week. I really can't wait.
I guess we'll see. One of the themes here is continued, where earlier we saw the Jedi just couldn't abide by the idea that these Coven folks exist, and now whether the stranger is Sith or Ren or something else, he's something Force sensitive that isn't Jedi. And so I feel like they really have emphasized that the Jedi believe their way to be the only way that's allowable for people with the Force.
Yeah, or that if you are a Force sensitive person, that you have to join the Jedi to be otherwise you should be locked up or something, right?
Right.
Well, again, that's how they presented themselves in that sort of Rashomon episode we saw a few episodes back, right?
Yeah. Like as if they're the cops of the world, sort of cops of the universe.
Oh, no, the Force is ours.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, too, because if you read some of the backstory stuff on the Knights of Ren from the comics and from the novels and some of the backstory they have there, the Knights of Ren don't necessarily worship the dark side. They worship something they call the shadow, which is, not necessarily, it's sort of more the opposite of the light than it is.
It's not just Palpatine in another disguise, really.
I mean, sure. I mean, it's like the witches are calling it. What would they call it? The string. What was it they called?
The thread, I think.
The thread. That's right. The thread. So yeah. Again, to me, it just seems like this is a widening of the lore in a really interesting way. I'm like I say, I can't wait to see how they twist this. I'm really curious.
Yeah. Cool. To move on to Doctor Who.
Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm. Doctor Who. The series finale or the series episode, what is it? Season 1, the Disney Plus Doctor Who.
It's season 1 if you're just newly watching it on Disney Plus, or season 14 if you've been watching since the beginning of the revival,
or season 61 or 62.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, Empire of Death, the finale of this season with Trudy Getwa and Rose Tyler. Rose, is it Rose? No. Ruby Sunday.
She's Ruby Sunday, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Millie Gibson.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Cool. So what do you got? We'll save my comment here that I've got in the notes for the end of it.
I mean, they gave us a real to be continued. This was another one, just like our talking about the Acolyte. This was another one that ended on a kind of a holy moly twist at the end of the last episode, and a to be continued. The whole idea that Sutek had been, latched on to the TARDIS all this time, had been traveling from place to place with the Doctor for a long time. They even show us in this episode, they flash us back to showing us some of the Tom Baker episodes that had Sutek previously and kind of really tied the lore all together, which is interesting given that they're kind of trying to separate this season as a sort of a rebranding reboot of Doctor Who. It's weird that they're tying it right back to that, but yeah, I mean, it starts out super, super grim, and it's pretty grim for most of this episode, right? Like the dust of death that basically kills. We get to see the deaths of like all these heroes, and then all the people in the community, and Ruby's mom and Ruby's grandma, and it's it starts out pretty intense, and then I'm still not super clear about the whole the TARDIS thing that they made. What is it, like the remembered TARDIS, the alternate TARDIS that they get into, and that they're riding around with Mel and Ruby and the Doctor. Were you able to follow exactly how the philosophy of that worked? Because I was a little like,
They were like talking about how it's oh my gosh, what's the exact thing that is it like memories as a time machine or something? I forget.
Yeah,
what the exact
memories
thing.
a time machine, I think is what he says. Yeah.
And this was a TARDIS remembered.
Yeah.
So I got the impression that this must have come from somewhere in Doctor Who's history. Obviously, I don't have that history, but I'm like, oh, this definitely looks like something they would have cobbled together like in the 60s or something. Was it not one of those things?
I don't know, because they said like, so what happens is basically they're inside that time window thing, right, where they can see back into the past, and they're not allowed to interfere with anything. But when they realize that they're really stuck, they do, and they get into this remembered version of the TARDIS, and it works for them. But it's not the TARDIS. It's kind of bits and pieces of remembered TARDISes. I mean, we see Melgo in there, who's one of the Doctor's old companions, and she sees some of her old outfits that are in there. I bet you if you were a Doctor Who head, there's probably tons and tons and tons of Easter eggs in that remembered TARDIS. I am not a good enough Whovian, researcher to know all those things, but I bet you there's probably a great article out there. I haven't looked it up, obviously, but showing that that's all sort of remembered parts of the last 60 years of Doctor Who. But yeah, I guess the idea is that they sort of do this, they travel around, and then they finally figure out that, Sutekh can't finish killing all of existence unless he knows who Ruby's mom is, which is a strange coincidence. And then, so I guess that ties the whole season together, because beating Sutekh is about finding that out.
So his weakness is his OCD?
Yeah. I mean, that's essentially how they do it. It's basically like, I couldn't possibly do anything until I find out this last thing. I can't kill the last 3 living people in the galaxy.
Well, but quick question. You guys talked about Rogue without me. Did you talk about the fact that when he's being examined by the other dude, the rogue dude, that they show all of the faces of all the Doctors?
I think we just touched on it briefly, but no, yeah, I mean, that it's the same thing. I think, like I just mentioned, like, it's weird that they're kind of connecting this history of 60 years of Doctor Who, but also kind of starting fresh. So I don't know, but yeah, it was, yeah. What did you guys make of all this? I mean, obviously it ends with a somewhat happy ending, bittersweet ending.
Yeah, I mean, the tie-in to Susan Twist is it Susan Twist? Was a bit weird too. Like because she in the end of it, I mean, she's possessed at the beginning of the episode, but kind of not possessed at the end of it, right? So she's like the big media mogul or whatever. Yeah, they basically say like, well, everything yes, you may have been created by Sutekh, but you're a real girl now. It's like, oh, all right, that's pretty weird. And then Mrs. Flood, who we established is kind of like a nefarious being who clearly has her own agenda, ends up basically sort of wahaha mustache twirling at the end of the episode, which is also kind of weird. Yeah, because it was weird that she was left to take care of Ruby's grandmother, right? Adopted grandmother. And then, because she kind of turned on her in the middle of the episode, and then she's all smiles and bubbly at the end, Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a bit weird. Yeah. And they kind of like imply at the end of the episode, I don't know if you guys talked about this, but at the end of the episode that it's almost like Ruby's going to not go with the Doctor for a while, right? So I was stumbled across something that Russell T. Davies had said, actually, that he's not done with Ruby. She's coming back. And in fact, there is a Christmas special coming back, because you guys kind of wondered about whether it would be a Christmas or a New Year's special like it has been in the last couple of years, right? Because there's always traditionally been a Christmas special, right? On 25th of December. But he does say that the Doctor will be back, and that he implied that Ruby will be back. And he did sort of talk about the mustache twirling Mrs. Flood standing on the roof at the end too. Because she's kind of an odd duck in a sense, because she's in the very first episode, she's sort of like, she sees the TARDIS and recognizes the TARDIS. And then she kind of is the first person to sort of believes Ruby when she mentions it, right?
Yeah.
And she's sort of been,
the line that she delivers where she says, Ruby gets a happy ending, but the Doctor's story will end in absolute terror. It's like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
Whoa, wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
So
then we've also found that there's like a split of Doctors too, because there was that second Doctor in the Jodie Whittaker series, right?
Right. Yeah.
A different sort of path, right?
Yeah. I must admit, I want to know, Jaime, what you made of all this. So this is, kind of your deepest dive on Doctor Who so far. What are your overall takes on how this all wrapped up, this particular arc? Plus, now that you've made it through a sort of full season, good, bad, happy, sad, time well spent?
Yeah, I think they did a pretty good job of, from what I could tell, looping in past things with some explanation, some flashback type stuff. They didn't just mention it. They would like show a little flashback, so it's kind of helpful. And the newer stuff felt like I understood what was going on. The thing, and I did like the the season as a whole. I liked Ruby Tuesday, as I keep calling her accidentally, as a companion. It felt like she contributed a lot, and then as a new person gets to get the Doctor Who explanations to her and therefore the audience. The thing I didn't like about this finale was I felt like the whole thing of the mother and who's her mother was set up a little too strongly to subvert our expectations. Like, oh, she's important because we decided she was important. Like, is that really the case though? Because she went to go drop off her child so that somebody else could care for her, and she wore this crazy cloak. She didn't wear normal stuff like a baseball cap, a big floppy gardening hat or something. So that part felt a little like J.J. Abrams puzzle box sort of stuff. I guess I missed the reasoning behind that to make it feel satisfactory. But otherwise, I enjoyed all the episodes this season. So it's more nitpicking at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that the first episode, not including the sort of the transition episode, the first episode was Space Babies, which I think was the worst episode of the season. It was the one that scared my wife off. So I feel like it was nowhere to go but up from there. And it definitely did. There was lots of good stuff. I mean, the episode where, Ruby's sort of trapped with the Doctor missing and stuff like that was really good. There was lots of stuff to like of this overall season. I really like Judigawa. I think he's great. I enjoy him as a performer. I loved him in Sex Education. He brings such a great energy to this. And I thought his chemistry with Millie Gibson as Ruby was really, really good too. It'll be interesting to see if she sort of wraps up her storyline in the Christmas special, or if she's going to come back for more series. But it's always an interesting thing, the dynamic between the Doctor and companion or companions. I got to admit, that was the part I really liked. Jodie Whittaker. I really enjoyed her Doctor, but I did not like her companions. I found them a little hit and miss, and just too many people, too many things going on. I found that a little cluttered. I actually really liked the ones that Capaldi had better, just because it was more one-on-one or it was one-on-one, one-on-two. It was a little bit easier to sort of keep everybody straight. So yeah, I thought just having the two of them and them really building this relationship and her mystery, I thought all of that was really enjoyable. So I hope that she's not just sort of one series and done, but I'm hoping that they continue the sort of trend they've had over the past number of series where we get to keep our Doctor for at least 3 series before they transition into something else.
Yeah, because I think Matt Smith was around for a while. David Tennant was around for the longest time. Right?
Yeah, he did a long. I think that was because of the shortness of the Doctor before him. Chris Eccleston did 1 series and was like, I don't want to do this anymore, and left. Then we got Tennant, who was amazing, and I think he did 4 series, at least 4 series. And then Matt Smith I think did 3 or 4, and then it's been sort of 3 for Capaldi, 3 for Whittaker. It'd be interesting to see what we get out of this. But
and I like the fact that they had what's her name crossover between Matt Smith and Capaldi. Clara?
Yes, yeah. I'm just looking up online here. It says that Varada Situ has been announced as a new companion for Series 15 alongside Gatwa and Gibson. I don't know. Oh, she was in Andor. Oh, I know she is. Okay. Yeah, she was in Andor. She was the she's the
mechanic-y girl.
Yeah, the Indian one.
Okay.
Cinta. Yeah, she's good.
Andor's girlfriend or whatever, right?
No. She's the one who's the she's on the planet. I think she's partners with
the guy from the bear.
No, she I think is in a queer relationship with the woman who was chasing. I have to try to remember the name. Dedra, not Dedra. The other one, Vel. Right? Vel was Mon Mothma's cousin. She was in a relationship with Cinta. They end up going to the planet together, going undercover.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. She's not a major character. She's sort of a supporting character to Vel. But yeah, she's Vel's partner. Yeah, she's good in that. I like her. So she'll be a second companion, theoretically, for next series. So that's good.
Cool. We're going to talk about the House of the Dragon now.
Oof, yes. not as hard as last week's watch, but kind of a hard watch too.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no.
I mean, it's kind of a the Lucy Show comedy of errors kind of thing, right?
Oh man, like the miscommunications and absolutely comedy of errors that happen. But in this case, it's like what if Lucy had her, was it Vita Mita Benjamin, and got hammered, but then was handed a sword. It's really, this was like, we pick up obviously right after last week's really grim ending where these two bumbling assassins who were supposed to be killing Prince Aemond for killing, who was responsible for killing Rhaenyra's son, Luke. We get these two dummies who go in there and then decide to take action and kill 6-year-old instead, the crown prince. And so we see basically this whole hell breaking loose in King's Landing. And of course that leads to, you're to blame. No, you're to blame. No, you're to blame. And we end up with, like all the rat catchers in the city are killed. We get, Rhaenyra the Cruel, to come watch, see what this horrible woman, Rhaenyra the Cruel, has done. And then we get Kristen, who clearly dropped the ball. The Lord of the Knights, the Lord of the Kingsguard, rather, clearly dropped the ball because he was inside boinking the Dowager Queen. He's banging Alicent. And then he's trying to basically, I don't know what, make up for it. So he sends Arik to go undercover as his brother to kill the queen in Dragonstone. Like that was ever going to work out. Like it was just basically a suicide mission because he's the worst person in the world. Like it was, what a mess.
Yeah, that actually is a good opportunity to go with my big question, which was, how much further will Sir Criston Cole continue to fail upwards?
Oh my God.
Every time he fails, he gets rewarded for it?
Yeah. He beats a gay man to a bloody death pulp at the wedding feast for the crown princess, and somehow ends up becoming the Queen's Guard after that. Like, he shouldn't have been just fired on the spot. He later, when they're doing the usurping, puts poor old Lyman Beesbury's head through the ball on the table in episode 9 of last season. Just outright murders this guy, and becomes like, again, Lord of the King's Guard, because the guy who's actually the Lord of the King's Guard quits after that. Mm-hmm. And then in this one, he screws up again and ends up becoming the Hand of the King. And he's the worst, just the worst. I felt bad because I feel so bad because I know that I read online that the actor who plays Sir Criston is a guy named Fabian Frankel, and he's apparently, by all accounts, a lovely Welshman. And he's playing he's playing the equivalent to the Joffrey or the Ramsay from Game of Thrones, this despisable character who does awful, awful things. But apparently people have been sending him very nasty things on his social media accounts. And he's had to he said this week, he's sort of stepping away from social media because people are being pretty hostile to him. And again, credit to him. Great acting, great performance. He's doing such, a great job of being this just stupid jerk, bully bum. And yeah, it's a shame that some people can't separate the actor from the performance, but full credit. Bravo. You are playing just an absolute despisable human being.
Yeah, people are stupid. But I think for me, the most interesting part of the thing was the whole episode was where the twin brothers who split and they go on opposite sides of the war. Mm-hmm. They align with different camps, right? Yep. And then his solution is to send one of the twins to pretend to be the other twin, mm-hmm. who's basically the personal guard of Rhaenyra, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. right? And he gets all the way into her chambers, and she's defenseless, which I find surprising, but she's defenseless. Yep. And his brother shows up, and it's the two brothers have to fight each other. Yeah. Yep. And the final solution, literally throwing yourself on your sword. I mean, that, he just couldn't live with what he had done,
Yep.
right? By having to, because it had to be a fight to the death, right?
Yep.
For these two brothers.
And it's interesting because there was some speculation about, well, who won the fight. And I saw a little social media clip with the director of the episode saying we deliberately tried to make it hard for you to tell who was who, because they both suffer the same leg injury,
on the bridge of a nose or something. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So when one of them gets up and starts walking towards the queen, you're not supposed to know whether or not that was going to be, I'm now going to kill the queen, or if that was going to be, but he says, as he's about to kill himself, he basically says, "Your Grace," and kills himself. So we know that was actually Eric, not Arik. So that was her personal guard who killed himself after having to murder his brother. Obviously feeling both the shame of killing his brother and the shame of putting the queen in this danger by the fact that he has an identical twin who almost murdered her. So I will say my only criticism of this whole part of it was we didn't really get to know the Cargills, and that's the family name of those two. We didn't really get to know them until, they were kind of in cameo a few episodes towards the second half of last season. We really didn't get to know much about them until the 9th and 10th episode. So we see them try, the two brothers are sent out to go and get Prince Aegon when he's hiding before the coronation they want to do. And then we see Eric steals the crown and delivers it to the queen because he realizes what a despisable bunch of goobers the Hightowers are. But I don't know. I'm not sure I felt like the stakes were high enough. Like, it's obviously brother versus brother is dramatic, but I feel like it would have been nice. Like, it feels like an old Game of Thrones. This would have been we really would have gotten to know these characters before this happened.
Right.
Do you guys?
Well, the other thing too is that, like, the whole concept of him. I mean, I get it. Like, I get it from the point of view that he failed to defend her by allowing. Yeah. I mean, she dismissed him. It wasn't like he was kind of like off duty when his brother came in to try and dupe the queen and kill her. So yeah, he failed. But by the same token, though, isn't his first duty to protect her no matter what?
Yeah.
So by killing himself, he removes himself from that responsibility, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to imagine what must go through a character or a person's mind if you were forced to kill your identical twin.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, it's funny. I once saw a special on PBS or whatever about how Marines are trained.
Mm-hmm.
And they're literally, I mean, like, according to this documentary I watched, right, they're literally thought to as they put their left foot down, to think kill. Right? It's kind of like these soldiers are brainwashed into doing what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that may be part of this whole, I mean, the whole honor system about, even like in the Rogue episode where Ruby is trying to explain to the other woman that, you don't have to listen to what men or what society tells you have to be. You can be independent and modern and whatever. But, but back then, because the one character was sort of saying this is the proper way to be and behave and things like that, right? And in the same sense that these people whose entire lives are built around becoming a King's Guard, protecting the person they're assigned to, being like the personal bodyguard, that's their ultimate responsibility. That must sort of color their decision making in terms of like what they'll do, and it's the whole honor system of I have to kill myself, not partly because of the guilt of having to kill his own brother and not being able to live with that idea, right? But also having failed his duty, his responsibility. Maybe you can't be. It's like Klingons. The Klingons can't surrender and go to prison. They have to die honorably, right? Sort of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, what did you make of this mess? I mean, we talked about how grim it was last week with baby murder. We talked about that a little bit on our Slack channel. Just that was a pretty toned down a little bit from the book, but still a pretty dramatic moment.
Yeah, the episode could have been entitled "Own Goals" for a variety of things. Like, I'm going to go with King Aegon, right? So there's a really great sort of thing with I cannot remember. Strong is Lucerys. No, what's that dude's name? Kind of has like a bum leg.
Laris.
Like Laris. Thank you.
Yeah.
After they've caught, one of the guys who murdered the king's son, and they have him in the prison. He's like, "Are you going to hurt me?" And Laris says, "No, but I cannot vouch for his grace." And his grace comes in and promptly beans the guy, right? Kills him. And even if you were going to do that sort of thing, like, and you wanted to take, your revenge on the rat catcher, you should bring in all the rat catchers and say, this dude needs to point out which one it was, right?
Yeah.
Rather than killing them all, which I think, the then current Hand of the King says, like, this is a dumb thing. We were already getting all the people on our side of how crazy of a butcher Rhaenyra the Cruel is, and now you go and not only kill all these guys, which all of those families are going to be aware of, you then string them up so that everybody knows what happened. Hey, whatever happened to Bob? Oh, I don't know. Maybe he went to the whorehouse, never came back. He fell into the ocean. Who knows? Like, it's one of those own goals things of, like, even if you're in pain and everything, just a little bit more sense. You can still have your anger. You can still kill the guy if you want, but making sure you get who was all involved and root out everybody. You were like so close, and you kicked the ball into your own goal.
Yeah. Well put. Yeah, I think, Tim, your point to start us is, this whole war has just been a comedy of errors. We haven't seen open warfare. This has all just been, well, what if I send you a raven about this? Well, what if I get this ally for that? Oh no, now Luke's dead. Oh no, now, now the 6-year-old gets killed. Now the King's mad and he's gonna start things, but he's fired the hand. But then Daemon, we didn't really talk about the Daemon Rhaenyra sort of, when Daemon sort of confesses to Rhaenyra, yeah, actually this is kind of my doing, and he's like, if I didn't tell him to kill the kid, whether or not you believe him, like, it's funny that what happens in the end of this sort of comedy of errors is that both sides are weakened. Daemon leaves, Otto leaves, and both the king and the queen are now in worse positions than they were, and now both of them are furious, and both of them are now looking at open warfare with dragons fighting dragons, and they're both sort of targeting the Riverlands as the place they want to be, and it seems like it's just what a mess. What a mess. But I think very compelling TV.
But it's broken television, broken telephone, because they're communicating by ravens, right? So, like, it's like the title of the episode is Rhaenyra the Cruel. I mean, this is how, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is how those kind of titles become like, she ends up wearing this title because it's just miscommunicated so much that she's from now on going to be known as Rhaenyra the Cruel kind of thing, right? So. Yeah,
it would be on the nose if it wasn't, I think, pretty well done. So King Viserys had his beloved model that his son Aegon destroys in a fit of rage, seemingly echoing the destroying the kingdom that he's doing with rash actions that he's taking.
Yeah, and he's going to make that worm guy. No, he didn't make the worm guy the hand. He made the
he made Kristen Cole the hand. Yeah. Yep. Well, good stuff.
Should we do the boys?
Oof. Yes, please.
Yeah.
And we're up to season 5. Sorry, not season 5. Episode 5 that came out today.
Yeah. Yeah. Up to that. Yeah. Okay, good. I have an elevator pitch for episode 5, which I think it applies to the entire series of shows. But the boys explore inappropriate power dynamics
in a lot of different ways. Well done.
Well, because I mean, when I'm watching the Sun, with Homelander and having the assistant, the PA, slap the guy who was inappropriate to her.
Yep,
that's inappropriate.
Yep,
right. So all of their actions are inappropriate, which is why we watch the show. It's like a car accident; can't look away.
It's the most delightful satire mixed with the most horrifying, over the top content Like, this show is a freaking delight. I was messaging back and forth with a friend of mine today who was like, oh my God, have you seen The Boys yet? And I was like, no. Now, I knew we talked about the trailer that they had put up, that we saw the farm animals from episode 5. We knew that was coming. I didn't know where it fit in the season, but it was everything I hoped it would be. It was so stupid and so funny and so over the top. It was so great. Yeah. I loved it so much.
But even the Voight Kampf, you know, what do they called it? It is almost like Star Wars Day or you know.
It's D23. It's D23. It's the DisneyCon. That's exactly what that is.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's the getting up there and talking about the shows that are coming out and it's delivered in that same way, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So sarcastically. Any keynote you go to these days is like that, right? So
I love the tech night, I think, where it was like, oh, and there's like a 12-minute scene completely in the dark, which is a completely black screen.
Well, and he says, it's been a year since my last movie, so it's time for a reboot. And the reboot is called The Tech Night. Oh, it just killed me. It just
with the Nirvana soundtrack.
Oh, again, this show is so well written. It's so good. I found myself both. I mean, last week's episode, we should talk about that a little bit too, is, you know, Homelander, you know, systematically killing all the people who are responsible for his, you know, imprisonment as a child. And then the whole thing with Annie and you know, the revelation about her having an abortion and how she just like loses it. And like, this show is so good. It's such a beautiful twisted mirror to hold up to what's going on in the world. It's so funny, but it is merciless. It is just, like, no one else is pushing the envelope as hard as this show is. And it is so over the top and so great. I mean, that scene in today's episode 5, with Huey's dad, Simon Pegg, where he like basically comes back from the dead and doesn't know what he's doing and keeps like running through people and exploding them. Again, a horrifying scene, but I was laughing hysterically. The scene where he's
standing, he runs into the room and he's standing in the middle of this guy.
Oh,
and he's turning and there's bits of the guy falling to the floor. I mean, like,
again, so over the top, but so funny. And because it's true, this is the kind of stuff would happen if you didn't know how to control your powers, right?
Like, right. Yeah, well, this is like, he's had a stroke, so he's had some brain damage. He's suffering from like a dementia of a type, you know. It's really well written that way. Like, you know, it's not like, you know, the V makes him healed, you know, it just makes him awake. Like, it's like my old one of my high school teachers used to tell us, like, you know, he said, what do you do when somebody's been drinking too much? And the whole class would go, oh, you feed him coffee. He goes, great, now you have a wide awake drunk.
Yeah. And it's in the middle of all this, we're also getting these like really beautiful and complex stories, like Frenchie's story about the guilt he feels about his past. And, you know, same thing that we're getting with, you know, the Kimiko stuff with the, you know, the shining light from episode 4. I mean, you know, obviously the stuff with, you know, Huey and his dad and his mom coming back into his life. Like, these are beautiful, sweet. Honestly, I have not enjoyed being on a yo-yo string from hilarity. I outright laughed out loud so many times during this episode, but was also deeply touched by some of the stuff that was going on. The last time I felt like this was Rescue Me, the Dennis Leary show about firefighters, where you could find yourself in an episode both just giggling hysterically because it's so goofy, because that's what, you know, the gallows humor of working in the firehouse. And then they would show you an emotional scene where somebody dies, or, you know, the danger and stuff like that is really, you know, gut punching. This show is freaking fantastic. Like, they are just firing on all cylinders this season. And flying, like, murder chickens, flying sheep with fangs, like, oh my God. And then ending the episode with Old MacDonald's farm playing over the credits.
Yeah. That was. I listened to the entire thing because it was so good.
Oh my God! It's just I'm in tears. It's such genius. It's such genius. I'm just so blown away by how good this is this year. The only thing that's still freaking me out is the dramatic weight loss by the guy playing Mother's Milk.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, yeah, like he lost a ton of weight, right? Because he doesn't look. It's almost like doesn't look like the same actor, right?
But people were saying that online. They were like, "What happened to the guy who used to play Mother's Milk?" And they're like, "That's the same dude. He just lost a lot of weight." But they never really they address it briefly in one of the earlier episodes. They're like, you okay? And it's just like, yeah, that part is still kind of throwing me. But other than that, man, this show is just it is delivering everything it promises. There's strangely only 3 episodes left in this season. They're only doing 8 episodes for this season, so it'll be wrapped up by mid-July. I'll be very curious, and we know obviously that this is the second but last season. There's going to do one more after this, so yeah, I mean, I really hope that they can keep this kind of momentum up. This one was also nice because episode 5 even brought back around the events from Gen V, right? The spin-off series. So we actually got a couple of the characters crossing over as part of the VotCon thing, and the V52.
Oh, is that who the blonde guy?
Yeah, the blonde girl and the pretty guy from them showed up, and they were there during the sort of weird execution scene where they beat the heck out of the Fox News-ish character Cameron Coleman. They pummel him to death at the end of the episode, which is
you're breaking up with me.
By the way, I'm still sleeping with your wife tonight. Like, God, it's dark, and I don't even have to come up for air. So good, so good. Last but not least, the season or series finale.
Yeah, so this is kind of interesting because I like this kind of story where they do the timey-wimey multiverse kind of thing, but like it just got over the top in terms of like the number of, I forgot the name of the main character, Jason. But Jason, the number of Jasons in this show, and they're all fixated on trying to get back to
Daniela and Charlie,
Daniela and the son, right? And yet, like in one of the worlds he goes into, he meets Max. Not the
it's the other. Max that lives
the other son, right? Yeah. So the very that from a plausibility point of view, that kind of got really weird. And then the only solution is to leave the world that they're in because they've done so many things that there's no explanation for, right? So. Like they couldn't go, if the police pulled them over, they would just accuse him of all of the misdemeanors that all the other Jasons had done, right?
Well, not to mention the fact that there are dead Jasons showing up all over the place too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that, because they're all shooting each other and killing each other and whatever, right? So yeah, it's just, I mean, it's odd, but so these guys gonna, is it like Land of the Lost now? They're gonna wander around in the various worlds until they settle on one. That was they would do in the 70s. They would have a TV show about Lost in the Box, and
Sliders, right? Sliders did that in the 90s, right? That went on for a while.
Quantum Leap and Land of the Lost, like even Lost in Space. Like they're all Gilligan's Island. Even you put them in a situation that they can't get back to normality, right? So yeah, I mean, I was okay with the show up until probably the second to last in this last episode. The second last episode was interesting when they started introducing all the Jasons without explanation.
Yeah.
Right, but when they walk into the solution at the end here, when there's like 100 Jasons standing in the room, that was a bit much.
I gotta say, I actually kind of disagree. I feel like the show went up a notch by its complexity at that point. I mean, yeah, it was definitely harder, to sort of, wrap your brain around it. But I liked the idea that in trying to get home, of course, he's making all these different decisions, which in turn create more Jasons, which in turn create more Jasons.
Right.
I liked
the Rick and Morty thing. Yeah.
I like the idea that, like it's not as simple as, one Jason takes you, one Jason goes back. It can't be that simple because that's not how, this works. I'm glad that they didn't just be like, well, and he came back and he found the evil Jason and he punished the evil Jason and he moved on. I like that there's this element of, what does Daniela choose out of this? What does she want? What is, is this Jason the Jason that she chooses the right Jason for her? And what will Jason do? What will all of the Jasons do when we know that those Jasons are more or less good people? They were also versions of him that got taken to a different world and tried to find their way back. Would they make the right decision and stuff like that? I found it as a sort of moral and ethical quandary. I found it really interesting exploration and what really great performances too. Jaime, what'd you make of it?
Yeah, I thought it was a really kind of cool show. I'm not familiar with the book, but it seems like the concept is Rick and Morty, but if a straight drama instead of a comedy show.
Yeah.
Multiverse type stuff where, every action that you could take and that everybody else could take actually does happen. And I think with what a lot of people online are referring to as Jupiter Jason, the fact that we're following one in particular doesn't mean he's necessarily more valid than any of the others. All of the other ones had an equal claim. In my significant,
but this is his Daniela, though. That's the difference, right?
Well, it's all legitimately their Danielas, right? Like Jason 2, the dark Jason that we sort of see at the beginning, who kidnaps original Jason 1, is the kind of like the only one who doesn't have a legitimate claim, right? Everybody else is like, oh, I'm Jason 1, but as of the point at which going into the box, right, and trying to get back home, it spawns off a whole bunch of different versions of them that spun off from the point at which he got, abducted. And so my significant other was asking me, like, is this the right one? I'm like, well, the only thing that Daniela knows is that the one that she met and picked up from the police station is legitimately the same one that she sees at the bean in the big metal bean, because he has the password and nobody else has the password. So she has confirmed that is the same one. Is that really her husband that was abducted? Yes and no, because a bunch of these other guys are the same guy. They just came back at different points based on which decision that they make, kind of thing. So it's really weird and sort of twisted to think about. And then they sort of Rick and Morty, right? The whole family here literally moves into what seems like it's hinted at as the future, not future, the fusion powered
the utopian one,
Chicago. They give it that yellow glow coming out of it. They didn't actually show it, so they can obviously change their minds. I also like the fact that this pretty much nailed the finale of like, this ends very sort of nicely tied up, but with one loose end that makes you say, oh, you can see a new season if you want to. You don't have to see a new season if you don't.
Yeah, the way they wrap up the story with Jimmy Simpson's character, right, where he is the one who got betrayed by Jason 2 and sent off into this other world. But then we see him basically back in a laboratory creating more of the capsules so that he could then go back inside the box. And then we see him meeting up with the I can't remember, was Sonia Braga's name or Alice Braga's name? What was the character's name? The woman who was with Jason inside the box for so long. I can't remember her name.
Amanda.
It's Amanda, yeah. We see him, the Jimmy Simpson character, meeting back up with, I think it was supposed to be the original Amanda, the Amanda who stayed behind, and saying, like, I've got a proposition for you, basically. Like, he's trying to find his way back to a world, maybe, or maybe this goes somewhere else. So they could do a whole spin-off just based on the Jimmy Simpson character, too.
And by the same token, though, the Jimmy Simpson character that gets betrayed and left abandoned isn't the Jimmy Simpson who figured out the chemical composition.
No,
right?
He's the mechanic. He's like you with the Honda Civic.
No,
right?
I don't mean that guy. I mean the one Jason one, Jupiter Jason's Jimmy Simpson.
Yeah,
right. He gets kidnapped by Jason 2 and left on the plant and left on the whatever, but he hadn't solved the chemical thing yet, because it was the one in Jason 2's world that had figured out the chemical.
It was, but then Jason 2 tells the Jimmy Simpson character about the fact that he's the one who gave him that in that other world, so he knows that he could do it.
And apparently he was close, right? In the bar scene, when he confronts Jason 2, he's like, what the heck, dude? Like, I invite you to come to my company, and we're super close, and then you, like, go off and do your own thing? That's like, so he
he gets 10 of the 11 herbs and spices correct, right?
Exactly. And so presumably what they showed us in that ending scene was, he may be really close, if not possibly figured it out.
Yeah. No, I think I'll be curious to know if they're going to do more. But I think if they just decided to call it at this, I think this was great. I thought all the performances were great. I thought the mood was really interesting. I thought the way they sort of explored, not because it's not strictly speaking, it's not like dimensional travel. It's, again, the way that your emotions affect your outcomes and stuff. I thought it was really interestingly done. If they decide to call it and say this was just a one and done, cool. If they decide they want to explore more of this universe, I would definitely dive back in because it was very, very interesting. Just, again, how simple decisions have long-term ramifications, and just exploring that was fascinating.
Yeah, there's a lot of shows out there that were either one and done or three and done kind of things. There was one with Eric McCormick, which I watched a few years ago, which was really interesting, and that kind of just got canceled before it was resolved. And there was another similar show with Millie Bobby Brown when she was still a little girl, where she was. You could go into another place, but you kind of took over a body of somebody that was in that place, right?
Okay. And
so she was an old person who took over this 9-year-old kid's body, kind of thing. Yeah, it was an interesting show. But again, that was only on for one season, and I would have liked to have seen more of that, right? So you can find the name of the thing, Millie Bobby Brown. What was that called? It was a few years ago. But I don't know if you remember seeing her in a yellow, raincoat kind of thing.
Yeah, it rings a vague bell, but
yeah. Wait, is this self or a soundtrack? Nope. I'm just trying to find it in IMDb. Stranger Things. What was that show called? Was it Intruders? What a horrible app. Anyway.
Well, we'll have for next fact check.
Yeah, it's good for fact check. At least we'll have something to talk about.
Yep.
Cool. All right, well, let's move on to the watch list and have at you.
Yeah. Remember that movie Atlas on Netflix? The one that says J-Lo getting the robot? So my recommendation here is to watch this, but not as must see, right? This shouldn't jump the top of your queue or anything. And although I have often said, hey, you got to do something when you're doing laundry and washing the dishes and stuff, and it's totally good for that too. But I looked at the Rotten Tomatoes for this. The critics say 19% and the audience says 45%. And I'm going to be very bold here and say I disagree with both of those. And you know why? Not because this is a great film. No. What this is I think people overreacting to this blessing, this cornucopia of content that we have available with all these streaming services and the interwebs where we can watch, old stuff. No, what I want to transport people back to, or tell, if you're, a summer child here, tell you about this past thing where you want to hang out with your friends, right? You're in school. Doesn't really matter what it is. If it's elementary, middle school, high school, college, doesn't matter. You want to hang out with your friends. You all want to watch a movie. It's Friday night, Saturday night, whatever night it is, you all doing this. And you go into Blockbuster Video and you've seen literally everything worth watching that is new, right? This is where you go away from saying, you know what? We've seen Transformers, but have we seen Transmorphers? Maybe let's give that one a try. Pirates of the Caribbean, we saw that, but have we seen Pirates? We really haven't. And so you go and you watch these things, and sometimes they're absolute garbage. In fact, many times they're absolute garbage. Sometimes it's like, hey, that wasn't bad, It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. And let me tell you, back when Mr. Jackie Chan was new to the American audience, there was only a handful of movies that had come here to the United States. But boy, oh boy, somebody somewhere was really smart and said, you know what I need to do? Next to the shelf of Rumble in the Bronx and, a bunch of others that had come out around that time, I'm going to find literally every movie that Jackie Chan has ever appeared in. I'm going to plaster his face on the VHS or DVD cover. And I did watch a whole bunch of those. Again, same sort of thing. I'm like, hey, let's watch this thing. Oh, Super Cop 2. Oh, okay, cool. And then there was one I watched with my friends, and we were like, dude, we're 45 minutes into this movie. We have not seen Jackie Chan. We need to get our money back. But no. He was in the movie, but he wasn't Jackie Chan. He was probably like Jay Chan, background actor number 5. So we're like, oh, go back. That was him, dude. That was him. That's why they put him on here. And so I know that you all here, just to put a pin in this, I know you all here who are listening to this show might say, I didn't live through that time, old man. What are you talking about? I'm like, this is the equivalent of that. Go beyond just the hot picks. Just go beyond the stuff that we might even be recommending here in general. Once you've tapped through that, say, you know what? Let's just give that thing a try. Ignore what they say on Rotten Tomatoes. Just watch a thing. Transmorphers or pirates or whatever it is that sci-fi has probably put stuff out somewhere, right? Go watch Sharknado, but it's like Octonado or something, right? It's like the knockoff. I give it a try. That's how
the Revengers.
Exactly. And that is exactly what I'm recommending here, that you watch Atlas. I think you should watch it, not as must watch, but as you've seen everything. You've tried the best, now try the rest, as the doctor on The Simpsons says.
That is the most unusual endorsement I've heard in a while, Jaime. Thank you for that. I'm not sure I'm convinced, but I am definitely much more intrigued.
So we should watch this movie? I'm not sure, because I keep looking at it going, should I watch this? I can't remember what he said about J-Lo.
Just keep it in your queue, Tim, and when you're like, dude, I want to watch something, I want to eat some popcorn, and you're like, I've literally watched everything I care about, there you go. Now it's number 1 in your queue. It's waiting for you.
I guess we should talk about movies we shouldn't be watching as well.
Yeah, well, this is actually a lovely segue into my watch list first pick, which is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, the I guess second of the potentially rebooted series of Ghostbusters films. I'm a Ghostbusters fan. I saw the original in the theater in 1984. I was 10 years old, loved it. It was a staple of VHS back in the day. Loved the first movie in particular, the second one to a lesser extent. I actually kind of really enjoyed the one that they did with the all-female cast. I actually thought it was a pretty decent movie.
I like that one too, yeah.
And I really, really liked the reboot that they did because it was very centered on, these characters. You got to sort of get to know them a little bit. There was, obviously some ties into the original franchise, but it was kind of starting over. So then that brings us to Frozen Empire. Frozen Empire is it's very unusual. I found myself watching it and thinking like, woof, this is a slow burn. They really are like really building up to the big bad in this one. I'm not going to spoil, and I'll sort of do a broad talk about it, but they really slow burned it. And they jam pack it with all the characters we met in the first rebooted movie from Jason Reitman. And then we also get, some of the established characters, and then they introduce some new characters. And by the time you're getting through this, there's supposed to be like 13, 14 people. There's, cameos of characters who appeared in past movies. And I looked as I was watching it, I'm like, this movie is like it is an hour and 55 minutes long. And it was at almost the 90-minute mark before we ever kind of get to the big bad of this thing. The whole first hour and a half is just sort of like little side quests, and I'd like to say the other parts are like character development, but they kind of aren't. They're just kind of all these little like bits and pieces. I can see why this one got a low rating on Rotten Tomatoes, but the frustrating thing of this is that the ingredients are there. There's a lot of likable performers. There's a lot of likable characters. It's set in New York, which is the greatest city to just set a movie in ever. It's got this legacy, this now 40-year legacy of backstory. This should have worked, but it just didn't. And in the end, it was not a very satisfying experience. It's worth watching if you're a Ghostbusters fan. If you're coming at it as sort of more of a casual, I watched the first one, you're probably going to be let down by this one because it's kind of all over the place. But I found myself thinking it's kind of a shame, and I think we've talked about this on our pod so much over the last 199 episodes. This would have been a brilliant HBO series or Hulu series or Disney Plus series or Netflix series. If they wanted to explore all these characters and really get into it and slow burn it to like, there's a big bad, but we're going to do some of these side quests. This would have been, if they took this outline of what they ended up with for this theatrical movie and they did this over 6 to 8 hours, would have been amazing, with so much to explore, the relationships between the characters, fleshing more out in the world, really getting into this idea that they live in this world where the supernatural is so regular for people. It should have been great, but trying to jam that into 2 hours and make it a good, so we care about the characters and so that we feel invested, and so that, the menace of this big bad is a thing, just never lands because there's not enough time and it's overstuffed. And I just kept thinking, I really wish that this could have been done that way, but I understand it's a tentpole franchise. It's a name people recognize. They should want to go see it in the theater, spend the money and everything else. In the end, it was a flop. In the end, I think a lot of people will come to it like I did. I got, I ordered a bag of popcorn. I think, Tim, when we went and saw our last movie in the theater and it came with a free movie rental, I went onto the Cineplex app, got my free movie rental and watched this. And it was, it was fine. But I just feel like this is not the way to tell this kind of story. If you're going to show me something and it's going to be a movie, a theatrical movie, if you're going to build around these tentpoles, then give me episode 5 of The Acolyte. Don't give me this. Don't give me a slow burn of an hour and a half build up and then like a 10-minute sort of, set piece to sort of end the whole thing. And then like a 10-minute epilogue. That's not going to do it. So anyway, I just found myself, more than anything, I can say that Frozen Empire was just disappointing. It's not bad. It's just disappointing.
I was going to ask you where you saw it, but you rented it obviously on the Cineplex or whatever, right?
Yeah, I think they have a combo that you can get, which I've gotten from time to time at the movie theaters, where you get a bag of popcorn and a drink and a snack, like a candy bar, and it comes with a free. You're paying for it. It's a $7 movie free rental from the Cineplex store. So I have that as, on my Apple TV, so I can just, dial it up and watch it. Worked like a charm. Good job, Cineplex. But I'm sure it'll be on a streaming service in July, August, somewhere in there, because they're going to want to get people to watch it and make their money back on it. Yeah,
it's on now, available for rent or buy, which is why I was curious about that. But you just saved me from having to rent it or buy it.
Yeah, I would wait for the stream on it. It's worth a watch. It's totally worth a watch. There are moments in it where you're like, damn, Ghostbusters, yeah. But not enough of them to be a great movie, unfortunately. And just very quickly, my second pick was, I just wanted to flag, there was an announcement from the good folks at Nintendo this week. They have announced a bunch of new games, including a new Zelda game called The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I wanted to call attention to this one because this is the first time in all the years of Zelda, going back to way back to when I was a boy, that you can play as freaking Zelda. Zelda is the star of the game. She is the one on the quest. She is the one who gets to go on the mission, and she is the one trying to help Link. So bravo. It's been too long. Thank you for finally getting there, Nintendo. But I'm excited that we're finally going to get a chance to play the titular character in her own series. And absolutely there should be more choices for us to play as not just male and female characters, but non-gendered characters, and to let people live their truths in video games. So hooray.
So the very first Zelda game, you didn't play as Zelda?
None of them. Not one over the years that I can recall. Jaime, I don't know.
Yeah, none of the main lines were you the primary character. Folks will probably shake their fists at their radios saying, what about the Philips CDI? Philips CDI Zelda, the one to Gamelon, which you do get to play as Zelda, but that one and whatever the Link version one is.
Super obscure.
Obscure and absolute garbage. I highly recommend people watch the various YouTubers do Let's Plays of those. Like, they're just absolute trash. This is from Nintendo itself. It's getting the love that Nintendo puts into these. So it's really cool. It's using the Link's Awakening, the modern Link's Awakening art style for that.
More cartoony than sort of serious.
Yeah, and it's got that top down instead of the traditional 3D. So it's really cool. And to Tim's point, like, it's called The Legend of Zelda. You generally play as Link trying to save Princess Zelda, but because it's confusing not having the main character's name in the title, like, Super Mario Brothers kind of thing, there are definitely t-shirts out there that say, what if Zelda was a girl? And it's meant to be like, yeah, what you mean is Link, what if Link was a girl? And there actually is a girl Link in like Hyrule Warriors or something. So it's weird, and it's one of those things where the naming of something from the 80s continues to plague ease of comprehension if you haven't kept up with 30 to 40 some years of history.
And if you haven't, how dare you?
Yeah, cool. All right, so I've got a couple of things. One is, again, is flipping by Prime the other day, this movie called ISS, which is about the International Space Station, came up. It's sort of a Russia versus US, and nuclear war breaks out, and what will the two sides... Oh, wait, wasn't that 2010, The Space Odyssey? Oh, never mind. But right off the bat, I mean, like it starts, what I'm saying is, if my advice to you is that the TLDR is, if you want to watch ISS, I recommend you watch Atlas instead. But it loses me right off the very beginning, because at the very beginning of the show, and I'm sure our number one fan will agree with me, you see the astronaut who's the main character and in a cosmonaut suit, and she's with another astronaut who's also English speaking in a cosmonaut suit in a Soyuz capsule going to the space station. There's just two of them in the capsule, not three, and they're not crammed in with like barely any room to move, which is how you really go to the space station these days, because the Russians don't waste an inch of space. They cram three people into the thing and they shove all kinds of stuff, and they can barely move. Like, if you've ever watched any of these things. So like right away, they've got elbow room, and they're kind of, chatting away, like totally unrealistic. And then of course, if you've seen the wire work in Gravity, or you've seen, Apollo 13, where they actually filmed in the Vomit comic to get to actually get them look like the actors who were in Gravity, the fake, attempted gravity just doesn't work. In fact, they even at one point, the guy sort of says, yeah, put your feet into the leg holes so you don't float around very much, which is not exactly, that's not how they, again, like the attention to detail was not there, completely fake, horrible story, right from the get-go, the writing is just really poor. And my advice again is watch Atlas. I haven't even seen Atlas yet, but it sounds like a much better movie. And then coming back on the fact check thing, I was looking at, while you guys were talking, I looked up Intruders is the name of the TV show with Millie Bobby Brown, where people take over other people's bodies. These people traveling from the future or from another dimension or whatever. They're people from our world, but they figured out this way of coming back in time and solving things. And there's only 8 episodes of it. It was canceled, but it was a really interesting premise. But if you're curious about watching it, it's on Prime, so you can watch it and get just as disappointed as I am that it was only 8 episodes. And then I watched, I think it's Travelers, was 3 seasons. This is the one with Eric McCormick. Same sort of idea where people come from a different like timeline, and they land inside other people, and they have this mission that they're trying to, like, there's, I think it's like 6 of them, and they're trying to solve this particular problem. It's almost like the dude that was in the end of a Discovery, Agent.
Oh yeah,
the one for the David Cronenberg character. Anyway, sort of similar idea like that. Like these guys are kind of like time cops or whatever, and they come back as a unit, and they kind of they like Eric McCormick is married to this woman, and he has to act like he's the husband kind of thing, but he's really working on this secret mission with the other 6 infiltrators that come back again. And it's very similar story, similar kind of storyline as Dark Matter. So Dark Matter, the the box one, not the good Dark Matter, which is the one I like. But yes, and that's 34 episodes. That's on Netflix if you want to watch that. So I guess those are kind of my picks, I guess, for the week for other kind of dimensional time travel-y kind of things, timey-wimey things that I enjoy watching. In fact, I heard somebody say timey-wimey in another series the other day. I'm trying to think of what that was. But anyway, that's all we got for this week. So until next time, Jonathan, if people want to get in touch with you, where would they find you?
You can find me on the Twitter and the Instagram as @JPK News, or you can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/@JPK.
Yeah, and wait, Jaime, don't tell me. If people want to find you, they could probably look you up on, I'm trying to remember now. What the hell was that again?
It's rhymes with...
how's it going? How's it going? No, that's not it. The other one.
How's it going at goodtimes.com.
Where would they find you, Jaime?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithAHair.
Alrighty. That should be your bumper sticker.
199 episodes. We're going to get that one of these days, Tim.
199. So it's 387.
That's true. That's true.
More than just
plus
codes,
a whole bunch of more than just codes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. and other podcasts that he's been on too. But until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
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 You've been listening to the Spockcast podcast. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spockcast website at spockcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter at Spockcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpockcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spockcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spockcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
Summer, there is so much content out there. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I honestly found myself this week when I saw that this was the end of Doctor Who and of Dark Matter. I was like, it's probably good because this is a lot of stuff to keep up with.
Yeah, there's too much TV to watch right now for me. Well, I mean, there isn't. I mean, thankfully, there's time in between. But I really got to run because I got to get back to editing the course video that I'm doing. So,
just a question. I haven't seen last week's Spockcast up yet. Did you post it?
Yeah, I haven't seen that posted
Probably not. I'm just so busy right now.
Yeah,
sorry.
No, that's okay.
It just means there's a queue, so they don't get posted out of order. Like, oh crap, I posted the newer one first, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I've been trying to finish these. I had to write five. This is not an easy task they give us to do, right? So I had to write these 5 courses, and now I'm just in the middle of editing videos. And once I get these 5 videos done, then I'm done.
Woohoo!
Yeah, and I'll take on another series later on. But yeah, like getting this and landing a job at the same time was not an opportune time for me. So
you got a new job?
Well, I got a contract, right? But and I'm kind of working on that, but I got to get this out of the way. So
okay, well,
that is my dilemma.
Yeah, I got. You'll be happy to know that our mutual friend Gord is now devouring the podcast. He said he's been stuck. He's now a bylaw officer for the city of Toronto. He's been driving around and listening to recent episodes as well as past episodes. He's like, I love you guys. You guys are great. And so he sent me a note this week. He said, where's my new episode? I'm like, I don't know. You're talking to the wrong guy.
Yeah, because Keen usually used to ping me about that too. But anyway, yeah, no, thanks for the reminder. It's stuck in a queue of not getting done yet. So. Yeah.
No worries. All right. Well, good to talk to you guys. Back next week.
Yeah, we might have to move it because Thursday the 4th will be
it's challenging for you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, 4th of July, the explosions.
Is there something happening on July 4th for you?
Explosions and stuff in the background.
Canada Day's on Monday. Debate? What are you talking about?
Yeah. And I know we talked about this.
For Pollo's sake, we always go away to a hotel to try to avoid the war zone in our neighborhood.
Oh, right, yeah.
because it irritates him, it angers him. He barks at the explosions as if he could fight them in some sort of way.
Yeah.
So we'll probably have to move it to like the 5th, Friday the 5th, I think.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm flexible.
Okay. We'll keep in touch on that. But yeah, the 4th has got to be out for just practicality.
Yeah, I mean, we could always do the Wednesday as well, because we just wouldn't be able to do the boys. That's the only thing we've been missing.
Yeah. And if I'm not on deadline for the Wednesday too. So.
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
right. So let's just
keep our flexibility. But yeah, let's stay in touch next week.
Okay.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Talk to you later.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.